So you want to write a book, do you? Well, you've come to the right place if you want to learn something about the realities of writing and publishing. I'm Professor Parsons, and this is video number 3 in my series to accompany the book Permission to Write. I know you want to be a writer and maybe even have published something already, but I want to ask you a question. Has anyone ever really been honest with you about the quality of your writing? And I'm not talking about your mother, who has a vested interest in your feelings, and I'm actually not talking about all of those people on those online writers groups to which you might belong, who are going to give you positive feedback because that's what they do, so that you'll give them positive feedback. No, I'm talking about real honesty. The fact of the matter is, what I've learned after 30 years of writing and publishing and editing students' work is that most new writers don't write nearly as well as they think they do. If you really want a dose of reality, well, come along with me on this journey. I'm your writing teacher, but remember, more than anything else, I'm the devil's advocate. I'm the only one who's probably going to be honest with you. So let's get started. I really care about good writing, and if you're a real writer, you should too. The sad truth is that you probably aren't nearly as good a writer as you think you are, as I've said. And that's not just my opinion. Have you ever heard of William Zinser? Well, if you haven't, it's time you went out and bought a copy of his famous book on writing well. It's a classic that every serious writer ought to read carefully, and I recommend that you keep it close at hand while you're writing. We all refer to it from time to time when we want a dose of reality. Anyway, near the beginning of chapter 4, which is titled Style, he says this: "Few people realize how badly they write." But he doesn't just criticize. He spends a lot of time trying to help people to improve their writing, and has done throughout his career. And no matter how poorly you do write, you can improve. Why, though, do so many people write so poorly? Well, Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker has written a book called The Sense of Style: The Thinking Person's Guide to Writing in the 21st Century. And it's actually a bit of an update on Zinser's classic. Some of his is outdated, but it's also useful. Dr. Pinker thinks that there is one single reason why people write so poorly these days. He calls it the curse of knowledge. He defines this as difficulty in imagining what it is like for someone else not to know something that you know. Now think about this for a minute. You know, someone reads a passage you've written and doesn't get it. You have trouble figuring out how they could possibly not know what you mean. And of course, the reader doesn't have the background knowledge that you have. So there's a problem communicating, and it still happens with me. I have 2 beta readers that I rely on regularly, and quite often they'll say to me, "I don't really understand what this means," and I look at it and I think, how could they not understand what this means? But if they don't understand it, they don't understand it. Neither will the rest of the readers. Writer Sarah Sy classifies writing in 4 ways: good content with poor style, poor content with good style, poor content and poor style, good content, good style. Of course, we're all aiming for number 4, which is top-notch writing, and I'm going to address the issue of poor content in a later video. Anyway, you need to consider both the content of your writing and the style, and let's talk to the style. For now, you need to know this: regardless of how poorly you do write, it can improve. You just need to know how to work to improve it. These days, everyone is writing, or so it seems. We write texts, we tweet, we blog, and it appears as if we seem to be doing more writing than anyone ever did before. Doesn't it seem as though we ought to be better at it? Well, the problem is that the more writing people do in more places, the less they seem to care that everything they write is well crafted. There's even a kind of mindset these days that it's somehow cool not to care about writing style. Trust me, it's not cool. So what makes something good writing, high quality writing? First and foremost, I think good writing is done by someone who actually knows the rules and conventions of writing. This person knows grammar, knows syntax, punctuation, word usage, style. And this doesn't mean that good writing always sticks to the rules, but what it does mean is that you as a writer need to know the rules before you can break them and still communicate what you need to communicate. The second is that good writing is clear and clutter-free, no excess verbiage. You know about Marie Kondo and her approach to tidying up your home. I'm sure you've heard of her. Well, think about taking the same approach to your writing. You might try to consider the bare bones of her method. First of all, try to visualize what you'd really like your writing to be like and commit yourself to moving toward it. But you really need to think about this. Then detach yourself from the words and phrases that you love. Get rid of the ones that you know are really clutter. And the third aspect would be to keep only the words and phrases that not only spark joy, as Marie Kondo might put it, but that actually get your message across without fluff. Good writing actually consists of well-chosen words, the best words to convey the writer's meaning. Now, in the end, why should you care about the quality of your writing? Why you? Well, because publishers care, and because agents care, and even if you're not going that route, readers really care. And you should care too. Your writing can improve if you're committed to doing what writers of really good writing do. And here's what I think the best writing is all about. It's written by writers who do the following. First of all, good writers care about quality, as I've mentioned before. Good writers practice their writing daily and publish only the best. Good writers organize their thoughts. This doesn't mean that you have to organize everything if you're what they call a pantser, someone who actually prefers to write without any kind of a plan. But trust me, organizing your thoughts will really help the quality of your writing. And good writers understand the basics of how narrative is constructed. Good writers are clear and focused and care about conveying their meaning accurately. And finally, and one of the most important things, I think is the most important thing, is that good writers never bore their readers. Well, the good news out of all of this is I think you can improve any and all of them if you're committed to improving your writing. But you have to start by being honest with yourself. The first draft of anything is shit, or so said Ernest Hemingway, and this is probably close to the truth. Well, what this all means is that after all of the writing, editing, rewriting, and practicing your writing can improve, and it will improve if you put in the work. It also means that you can't ever publish the first draft of anything. There's already enough shit out there. And like I always say, if you really want to be a writer, stop telling other people that and just write. Subscribe and come along with me on this journey.